Welcome back. As you can see, we just got through doing the same process with these younger melons as we did with the older melons a couple of weeks ago. We ran the red plow in the middle, the little do-all, and then now we're doing the hood, putting out our Prowl H2O. So same exact thing as we did with the first watermelons. And you can tell on the video the vines are just about to run off the plastic. On these vine crops, you know, when we put out our pre-emerge, right when the vines are fixing to run off the plastic, the idea is that when the vines come together, you know, and shade out all that middle, then it'll suppress the weed growth. Plus you have your chemical down there. So weeds don't grow and germinate that well in the shade. Just like on the peach trees, on those big trees where they're touching each other and the sun can't get down underneath it, the weeds don't grow near like they do on the ends, or maybe where we have a smaller tree in the middle, you know, where the sunlight can get down in there. So that's one reason why we waited to the last minute to put out the chemical. You know, it only lasts so long, and then we want all those vines to shade everything out. I've started my watering schedule on the drip irrigation every day now that the crops are putting on fruit. You know, we do have different stages, so they're not all that way yet, but that's how we do it, and we'll probably keep it that way. You know, unless we get a big rain or something, we'll turn it off. But I was watering every other day for a couple of weeks. Then before that, I was just watering it a little bit because we were having a lot of rain. But now that the temperatures are heating up, you've got fruit on there, so we water every day. It's best to stay on a watering schedule and keep it the same all the time. You know, you don't want a lot of fluctuation, and it's hard to know how much to water. You know, you don't want to overwater. Temperatures are not always the same. You're going to have rain and all that. I usually just kind of wing it, feel under the plastic how wet it is, and kind of monitor it, some in the mornings and some in the afternoons, make sure I'm not watering too much or watering not enough. So that's not a very scientific way to do it, but that's how I do it. It may not be the best way. I think there are some ways to help you with your moisture levels, like sensors and different things to help you with irrigation schedule, but I just kind of stick to what we've done in the past. We're plowing the second piece and the third piece now. I got my rolling cultivator out. We're using it. It's a 4-row also. And it's just got rolling gangs that roll, as opposed to the Henniker that's just got rigid sweeps. You know what a difference a week makes. These peas were about underwater last week about this time, and now we're plowing them. So most of them look like they survived too, so I don't think we lost too much. One of the reasons I want to use the rolling cultivator is to kind of air out the soil a little better than that other cultivator, since they had so much water on them. These are the third peas there. You can see how that rolling gangs there, they get pretty close to the peas. So you really don't want to use this rolling cultivator when the peas are bigger, because it'll damage those roots. But right now it doesn't matter too much. Anytime you hear that beeping in the cab on the video, that's my guidance telling me I'm getting to the end of the road. So I'm sure you've heard it on these videos before. I think they do it in case you fall asleep or something, so you don't keep going. But that's what that beeping is. This is a rolling cultivator here. It's got these gangs that spin like that. It's just a different way to plow it. Does a good job. They're kind of angled a little bit. You know, so they'll kind of ride right on the edge of the row there. It's got these sweeps in the back, in the center of the row. It's old, but it does a good job. This morning we're in our second and third piece, putting out our insecticide just like we did on the first one's last video. Pretty much my insecticide recipe that I stick with is imidacloprid, which is a systemic, and then bifenthrin, which is a pyrethroid, which is a contact kill. So we use that recipe on most everything. Hey, these are my beehives that I have brought in every year. There's a commercial bee farmer that brings them to me and then comes and picks them up, but we use them for pollination. All the cucurbit crops, which are the watermelons, cantaloupe, squash, cucumbers, and also include stuff like pumpkins and cushaws and gourds, that kind of stuff. Anything in the cucurbit family has male and female flowers, so they have to be pollinated by bees. So I always bring in some extra bees just to make sure that I have enough. If you didn't have bees to pollinate, you wouldn't have any fruit on all these crops, because the pollen has to go from the male flower to the female flower. Only way you can get there is by bees. All right, if you can see right here, this is going to be a male flower. It'll probably open today. You can see that right there. There's another example of one male flower. Of course, here's your female flower that's already been pollinated. Has a little watermelon right there. You know, a lot of people don't think about stuff like that, but if you didn't have the bees, you wouldn't have a lot of crops, you know, worldwide. Now, all crops are not pollinated by bees, like tomatoes can be pollinated by wind, but they're very important to the food supply of the world. Just to give you an update on the corn, the last time we showed you it was knee-high. You can see what it looks like now. Didn't take it long to put a tassel on. Right now we're headed to the field with the planter to plant our 5th planting of purple hulls. We got a lot going on today. Yesterday we started laying poly pipe. We got some more to lay today. We're going to try to get the corn watered for the first time today. And also we're going to have to pre-water all that ground that we worked up on the last video for the late melons and the sweet potatoes and all. There's no rain in sight, so before we transplant we're gonna have to pre-water it, which I don't like to do because the ground is soft, because we've, you know, worked it up and got it ready, and normally we'll get a rain on it and then we can plant it and then water it after. Well, now it looks like we're gonna have to water it before, so we're trying to get set up to do that today. So hopefully we can get that on the video and show you how that works. All right, we got the water going on the corn. We'll probably water it at least once a week from here on out till we get through harvesting. We'll water the first, second, and the third corn all at one time. Every time we water, we just water it all at once. So we got it going and needed it. It was kind of showing some signs of stress, that older corn, yesterday in the heat of the day. So time to water. You can see why we did the furrow plow, because we want to keep the water, you know, in the row. If we don't want it jumping over from row to row, because then all of a sudden that row doesn't get any water. So that's why it's important to have a good furrow for that water to run in. All right, now we're pre-watering the potato field, getting the holes punched here, getting the water turned on. We'll do this today, pre-water the watermelons tomorrow, and then probably the peas that we just planted and some more watermelons next to it. We'll pre-water them the next day. And hopefully everything will be pre-watered before we get ready to transplant. Plus we need our chemicals activated down here too. They call this 12-inch 10 mil is the thickness. This comes on a roll, usually a 1/4 mile roll. We just roll it out. Can't really tell right here, but I ran my ditching machine ahead of the poly pipe, and it makes a little ditch for the pipe to sit in. That way it keeps it from rolling and twisting. There's 2 separate trips, one with the ditching machine, and then we come back with the truck and just pull out the poly pipe. We don't have a poly pipe layer, so we just do it that way. What I was talking about is the ground is soft, and so it's gonna run slow. It's gonna take it a while for the water to get all the way to the end, because we want it to soak the top of the beds, you know, all the way to the middle right here. And we'll have to let it run probably overnight. It's about lunchtime. We'll probably cut it off daylight in the morning, or at least check it. This is what a plug looks like right here. It fits right in that hole. If you want to plug up the holes, some of them, all of them, whatever, you just stick that in there. Pop it right out. You know, once this sandy ground here has been either rained on or irrigated one time, you know, obviously the water will run faster next time, as long as it hasn't been disturbed. Now if we cultivate it or something, then it'll be slow again. But this sandy ground here will soak it up good. It just takes it a pretty good while to get to the other end. All right, it's the next morning and we're fixing to turn on the next section to pre-water. I didn't have to run it overnight. It went faster than I thought it would be, so we cut it off before dark, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. I don't know if you can tell by the sunlight and the shadows, but you can see how moist all that is. It soaked it right in all the way through to the middle of the row. You can see the difference right here where it's drier, just in the color of the soil texture. This is our well here. See, we just turned it on. Probably hear the water running. You know, we put out our chemicals about a week ago. This water will activate it, but I'm sure have some little weeds that either are up or in the process of coming up before that activation started. So the day before we transplant, we'll come through and spray everything. It'll be small, anything that's up and popping up, to try to kill it. Try to start as clean as we can when we start planting. All right, this morning we're gonna spray my peaches. The guys are finishing up on the suckers on the second tomatoes. We're also doing some hoeing, trying to finish that up on the plastic edges in the watermelons, and probably start on the hoeing on the peas over the levee this morning. Also today I'm gonna try to get my next peas I'm gonna plant. I'm gonna get them rehipped and freshen up those beds. So that's the plan for today. of our watermelon transplants for next week on these trailers. It gets so hot in the greenhouse this time of year. Once they kind of get up and take them outside, you have to water them so much because you can't keep up because it's so hot. They do good under the shade here though for the last few days before we plant them. All right, here we are refreshing up these beds. This will be pea plant number 6. We'll do it next week, maybe in about a week or so. It's Friday morning and I'm doing my weekly fertilizing, injecting through the drip lines. I'm gonna kind of give you an update and show you what some of the crops look like at this point. All right, these are my yellow watermelons right here. They're not quite as vigorous as the red, the vines. They get ready a little sooner. It doesn't take them quite as long. If you see this white powdery stuff, that's something I started doing years ago. I don't know if it works or not, but we just kind of side dress with some potassium nitrate on all the melons. And we did it about 6 or 7 days ago, and it hadn't rained, so it's still sitting there. Whenever it rains, it'll wash it in. There's a little yellow watermelon. They're gonna be a darker green rind when they get bigger, and the red ones will be a Jubilee type with a dark and a light stripe. They all kind of look the same when they're little, but when they start getting a little bigger, you'll be able to tell the color difference. All right, these are my pickling cucumbers. We've tied them twice already. We just keep tying them straight up, and then they'll kind of hang down on the sides of the plastic, but they really don't ever get off of the plastic, but they get pretty bushy, but we try to keep them up off the ground, you know, so the cucumbers are not on the ground. These are our oldest tomatoes. You know, they're getting big. Let's see if we can find some pretty good sized tomatoes under here. Some right there. Smaller ones up here at the top. See, they're growing pretty good. All right, these are our oldest bell peppers. You can see we've tied them twice. You can see the little peppers right there. All right, this is what our red watermelons look like. If you remember, I told you by the end of May, I like to have them touching. You can see how these are 2 rows here. You can see how they're touching down through there. Not quite all the way here, but we've still got 5 or 6 days left in May. These are our jalapenos. Let's see, we got some blooms. Don't see any peppers yet, but it won't be long. All right, these are the Cubanelle peppers. Same thing. Got some blooms. Oh, there's a pepper right there. Right there. These are our eggplant. Got some blooms getting ready to open right there. We've tied these twice. We'll probably tie them at least a couple times. The eggplant will get way up here. They'll get an even taller. They'll get big. Here's the squash. We plant 2 rows all the way, but we split it up halfway, and then the second planting will be the other half. These are the oldest cantaloupes. They don't have as big of vines as the watermelons as far as stretching across. They'll touch or close to getting to touch at at some point, but they're not as fast as growing. There's one right here, pretty good size. Most of them are not that big yet. All right, the guys are tying the oldest tomatoes on the 5th string. It's possible we could do it one more time, just kind of depends. But we always do at least 5 strings on the tomatoes. And we're gonna do a little mechanic work today. I gotta change out some bearings and a couple things. Still doing some hoeing. And we also got our 3rd section, final section, pre-watering that we've been doing the last couple of days. I'm hoping on Monday we're gonna start transplanting watermelons and then transplanting sweet potatoes after that. So you should see that on the next video. I appreciate y'all watching. If you want to subscribe to us, we'd appreciate it. Leave a comment, pass it along to your friends, whatever. Thanks. See you next time.